Hey guys, it's SD, your host of the Life Picks Relationship podcast, where people with all sorts of backgrounds, challenges, and life experience show us how they make their relationship extraordinary. Hey guys, we're here today with Allison Lefkowitz. How are you?
I am really good. How are you? And thank you so much for having me.
So glad to have you here. You want to tell us a bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. So I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. I've been in practice since 2009, and anybody that knows about becoming a therapist, it's quite a long process. I kind of say the journey started in 2009 as I became an intern and got my hours for licensure, all that good stuff. And then I was at a group practice up until August of 2018. And also during that time, I started my own private practice. And then I took the leap and went full private practice in August of 2018. And then I've done that ever since.
Do you like it better than working with a group?
You know, there's pluses and minuses. I definitely miss, the camaraderie, having that ease. Though I have some lovely people in my office now that if I catch them at the right time, you know what I mean? Because sometimes with therapists, it's about timing because we're popping in and out of our offices. I miss having the group environment. You get a lot of support. If any, client is difficult, like you can access a little more easily. That's the thing I miss the most. But then, working for myself, it's sort of, I can design my practice exactly how I want, being a highly sensitive person as well. I think being in private practice works best for me. And then I've just over the past couple of years, really resourced myself. So, I have someone that I go for ongoing support. I have my own therapy, and then I have other support systems as well. But I feel like I've been somebody that maybe is, without knowing it, more meant to work as more of like an entrepreneur on my own, as opposed to working for like a big organization. So I feel like I sort of unconsciously, authentically found my good fit.
Yeah. And so you want to tell us a bit about highly sensitive people?
Absolutely. I'm excited to. So highly sensitive people is, I am one myself. And part of the reason I specialize in them now is because I've gone on my own journey about discovering I was a highly sensitive person, learning about it, and then helping other people. So highly sensitive people, they are about 20% of the population, and actually equal. I know it's a big
It's
part
a
of the
lot,
population,
a big
right?
number. Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool to find that out. And so it's actually also equal in terms of gender. So both men and women can be highly sensitive. It's really an innate trait. It's inborn. It gets passed along through generations. And the way I like to think about it is we have more finely tuned nervous systems, meaning we take in more information than 80% of the population. And so that is an amazing, wonderful, beautiful gift, and see many examples in our life, in our society, in arts and sciences. I could go on and on. But, because we're this big part of the population, but because we're so misunderstood, then that means that could also be some challenges as well. And so there are actually 4 indicators, and this comes from the research of Elaine Aron, Aron. And just to preface it, if you're going to start learning about highly sensitive people, or if you think you are, check out her stuff first, because she is the main researcher. She's the person that has done an extraordinarily large amount of work about the trait. But high sensitivity has 4 primary indicators, in which Elaine Aron explains in an acronym of DOES, DOES. So the D stands for a depth of processing, meaning that, again, like I said earlier, we take in more information, both positive and negative. So we're sponges in that way.
Right. So like, if just explain to our listeners, if you're in a room in a party and you're talking to one person, you don't just hear just that one person, but you're hearing the whole room of everyone else around you also.
Yeah.
Right?
So that's kind of it. So you're taking in things at a more depthful level. So let's just say you're talking to that person, right? So you're not just maybe hearing their words, you're also maybe noticing things about their physical appearance. You know what I mean? You might, a highly sensitive person might notice like, wow, I really love like the shape of this person's beautiful eyebrows or something. Do you know what I mean? We'll notice things like that, or the tone of voice. We also pick up on energy quite a lot. So we also get sort of intangible feelings. Do you know what I mean? Like senses and a sense about somebody. So that would be sort of like the depth of processing you might get as you're sitting in front of another human being. But also we process and take that depth in through anything. So through our physical environment, many different ways. Have any other questions about that before I keep going?
Under that category includes also like clothing and environments of walking around.
The depth of processing, yes, it could be that you would be taking in, so like a fabric example. So you might feel a fabric a little bit more than somebody else. Does that make sense when I say that? Or you might feel the weight of it a little more. You might feel the texture of it a little more. Like high sensitivity in children. One of the indicators is, and I know this from my own experience growing up, is I couldn't stand buttons on clothing. I didn't like how they felt. I didn't like the buttoning part. I refused to wear anything with buttons on it.
Yeah, like too tight clothing also really bothers. Like I got quite a few people in my family who are highly sensitive too, so I have a bit of experience dealing with them. Of everything has to be so perfect. Like if the sock's in the wrong direction, not perfect, it's like a huge no-no.
Yes. We're having a
Food
discussion
textures, all that is part of under this category.
As I think about it, it also could go under the S part of the does, which means awareness of subtle stimuli. And so I would say maybe that would fall more under that, about having to get things exactly right in the way that we feel is right. Like it makes me think about a conversation I had with some HSPs about socks and how annoying it was if you had a sock that would like slip down your foot, and how like distracting and achingly like just uncomfortable that was, and having to deal with that. So that I think like that sort of things might also fall under the awareness of a subtle stimuli, because we'll really feel the sock going down the foot. Do you know what I mean? As opposed to someone that's maybe not as sensitive.
Yeah, so that's the D. What do we have for the O?
The O stands for overstimulation. And I think when the majority of people hear about high sensitivity, or I think when people first hear about the trait, like that's, I think, what people's automatic response is, that it's about overstimulation. And it is, but it's only one of the parts and the pieces of being a highly sensitive person. So overstimulation, like if you read a lot of things about highly sensitive people, that's the first thing that they talk about. So bright lights, loud noises, that's also, even with like textures and fabrics, that can be overstimulating. Sight, smells. Also, I sometimes put it being in the category of being overstimulated by our emotions. We can get very overstimulated by, like scary movies, violence, things going on in the world, things like that. So that's the overstimulation piece. And then, so now we go to E, and E stands for emotional responsiveness or empathy. And I think this is one of the most beautiful parts of being a highly sensitive person. And so we take in a lot of information sensory wise, but again, we take in a lot of emotional information, and we tend to be very empathetic people. About 30% of highly sensitive people also identify as being an empath. So like I'm an empath as well. So like an easy example would be, let's just say actually this happens a lot to me when I'm seeing clients. So I'll have someone come in and they are very, very sad. They're very sad about something. And so, I'll be present with them. I won't pick up on it. But after they leave, I'm like, gosh, I'm really sad too. And I don't know why I'm sad. Like I just know, gosh, I just feel really, really sad. And so part of what I'll do is kind of sit with it. Oh, okay. It's their sadness, not mine. Got it. Like we pick up a lot. Also with physical cues as well. I've had this, someone close to me has a stomach ache. I might have a stomach ache as well. So empath, it's a beautiful gift, because you're able to feel into someone else's experience, but then sometimes you also feel their pain, so they can be a little challenging.
So other people feel more understood speaking to highly sensitive people?
That's a great question. I would say, I can't speak for every, human.
Yeah, obviously it depends on the person, but in general.
Sure. My general sense would be yes, they do. Also, a lot of highly sensitive people tend to work in helping professions like therapy, like counseling, medical professionals. I have, a wonderful human on my caseload that's highly sensitive, that's a physician. So, absolutely. I think we are natural helpers and healers, and that's one of our gifts. And so being able to be present with someone and be understood by them is a huge part of the healing process. So absolutely, that's a great question.
Great. And the S, we said?
The S stands for subtle stimuli awareness. So kind of what we touched on earlier. So being, again, like the sweater I'm wearing, I'm probably feeling it a little more than not highly sensitive person. Also, this can kind of be connected with overstimulation a little bit, because again, we take in more stimuli. And so like we'll walk into a room where someone's been cooking. We might smell it more than the person that's not as sensitive as we are. And so depending on the smell, because we can get overstimulated in like a good way and take things in a good way or in a not negative way. So depend on what the smell would be. about how we would react to the stimuli. This also makes me think about HSAT or artists. If you think about a composer when they're composing a piece of music, how do they do that? How do they know what note to go to? Or a writer, how do they know what word to use? Or an actor, how do they feel into their fellow actors' experience in order to, respond to them in a way that is effective and that we can feel emotionally connected to? So it's, I think, another one of the gifts of the highly sensitive person as well.
So there's some challenges, some gifts. You want to tell us a few of each?
I'll start with the gifts because I think part of my mission in working with highly sensitive people is I think it's really misunderstood. People think that it is a disorder. It is not a disorder. It is a beautiful gift and a trait that, just like any beautiful gift that you have, there could be some negative sides to it. So I think the gifts can be one we just mentioned, the beautiful gift of empathy and emotional awareness, the depth that we can go to. We have a really deep interior. We're deep thinkers. I imagine a lot of ancient philosophers, like Aristotle was probably a highly sensitive person. We really want to get into the depth of things. And so that's why I value some of my friends that are highly sensitive, or the therapists I know, because we can have those depthful conversations that I think that we really deeply crave and that we really need. I find HSPs to also be very connected, soulful, spiritual people in a way, and not so much in terms of organized religion, but we also have a deep connection to nature, to animals, environment. And so that's a beautiful connection that I think can kind of serve both the human, the highly sensitive person, and then whatever they're feeling connected to. So you'll also see that people that work in activism or work with animals, work with nature, they're also HSPs as well. I think of a HSP I worked with for a little while, that she worked in community gardening. I won't say exactly what she did, but she would say how the flowers spoke differently to her. Do you know what I mean? Wildflowers speak differently than the flowers that are in the greenhouse. And I'm like, oh, that's so beautiful, right? But this is her true experience of it. And I just think overall, we're just, because we're so connected to humans and the human condition, that I find us to be pretty awesome people. So those are the positives, I would say. I could go on, but I'll leave those. Any questions about that before I go to the negatives?
No, that sounds
Or the
great.
challenges?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not negatives. They're
Yeah.
challenges. I like that.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, I was like, yeah, let's reframe that. So challenges. I would say one of the big challenges of being a highly sensitive person, I think, is being misunderstood. That because there's, even in the name, do you know what I mean? When you hear highly sensitive person, what's your first reaction, right? I had my own reaction when I first heard it. I'm like, oh, sensitive. And then we get all these cultural messages about sensitivity, especially in the West. In the East, they're a little better with it. They honor it a little more. In the West, we're not so great with sensitivity. We have a different value system.
Yeah, I think also people don't really know. Someone who's
Yeah,
not a highly sensitive person just gets annoyed that the highly sensitive person is being annoyed or is telling them to be quiet or to move out of their way or they need space or whatever it is. And they don't understand that it's a real need.
yes. And I find in my experience and also my clients' experience, that idea of being too sensitive can get, this is a strong word, but I'll use it, gets weaponized sometimes, in ways that can be dysfunctional or harmful, where someone is having an authentic emotional response to something, but the person on the other side doesn't want to hear that, and they'll go, oh, you're being too sensitive, or it definitely happens to, I would say, to a lot of children, not just highly sensitive children, that children are pretty authentic in their emotional responses, right? But how many of us were told, when we were crying, to stop crying, or we were afraid of something and told not to be afraid, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
so there's a way that our just pure authentic emotion gets kind of squashed sometimes. It's not that the people that are saying it just meant to do it. The same thing happened to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They just don't know otherwise. Yeah.
They don't know otherwise, right? And so when people hear sensitive or even just hear the word emotion, they think that's a bad thing. And I'm like, oh my goodness, no, this is how we work.
Humans, yeah.
Yeah, we're humans. Well, again, I think, you mentioned something that's, I think, a big part of my work as a therapist is just getting comfortable with the human condition. I think we are socialized in so many ways, especially highly sensitive people, to not be comfortable with the human condition, which can, include sensitivity, which can include strong emotions. So to go back to the original question, I think one of the big challenges is being misunderstood. But the good part is there's a lot more education coming out. People are learning about it more. So that is changing. But again, people kind of have this automatic response to what being highly sensitive is. So
Yeah.
that's a big one of the challenges. Another one I see in relationships, like romantic relationships or in family relationships, if you are either the only highly sensitive person in your family, or I think about, I say this to some of my clients, I go, there's probably a couple in your family system that are hiding. They don't know they're highly sensitive, or they've organized their emotional selves not to show it or something like that. But usually, I find, especially because it's genetic, it's innate, there's probably more than one in your family, but some people feel like they're the only one that experiences the world at the frequency in which they do. So again, trying to get family to understand that can be a challenge. Also, if we date a partner that's not highly sensitive and their emotional way of being is different, also communicating that can definitely be a challenge
So
in many different ways. Yeah.
what would you suggest to someone who is highly sensitive that's in a relationship? How could they improve the relationship and make it better?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So first step is honor it within yourself. Acknowledge that you are highly sensitive. There's nothing wrong with you. There is nothing to be fixed. This is who you are, right? So I think the first part is just saying, authentically owning who you are. And if that's hard for you, I want to say that, then find a therapist, find somebody that can help you with that. Because I'll say for a lot of people, really honoring our authentic self can be really scary, can be a long process. So if you are having difficulty really claiming who you are, get some help. I certainly did, from multiple people in multiple ways. So that's step one. Once you get a little more comfortable, or while you're getting comfortable, really educate your partner about the trait. Again, there's so many more resources now. There's actually a couple of movies even you could watch. Elaine Aron, who I mentioned earlier, there's a documentary called Sensitive that talks all about a lot of the research. If you like Alanis Morissette, she's in it. I love her. I'm like a 90s music girl, so I enjoy her in it. And then they also came out, it's not a documentary, it actually tells a fictional story, but it's called Sensitive in Love. And it talks about two siblings that are highly sensitive, that also come from a traumatic background, and their sort of journey of discovering themselves and finding love. There's books, Elaine Aron wrote a book called Sensitive in Love. So there's so many resources. I would say really educate your partner and kind of investigate it together, so learn about yourself, also teach your partner. And then the third piece, again, I don't think there's necessarily black and white rules for everybody, and even highly sensitive people, but really figuring out what works best for your relationship. What do you guys need to work on? Do you need to work on communication? Do you need to work on setting boundaries? Like what, you know what I mean? What's going on in the relationship that might need some more work, understanding, sort of things like that.
General relationship stuff, yeah.
General relationship stuff, yeah, we all need it, because everybody brings their own unique makeup, own unique way of being. And so I don't think you necessarily need like just highly sensitive, relationship counseling. There's still a lot of tools out there that I think are still really helpful.
Yeah, now let's just flip that for a sec. Mm-hmm. Someone who's in a relationship with someone that's highly sensitive, but they're themselves not. Obviously, first thing is to educate themselves, like you just said. But is there anything else they could do to help their partner in their relationship?
It's going to sound really simple, but I'll say ask them.
Ask
them what they need. Ask them what they want. Ask them, is there anything that you need to change? It doesn't have to be a guessing game, and sometimes too, especially if we've been in a relationship with someone for a long time, we think, oh, they should know them, they should know me, they should know what we want. Pretend you don't know anything. Ask them.
Awesome. I like that. Yeah, the simple is always the best. More complicated you make it, the harder it is. It doesn't happen. That's awesome.
No, absolutely. And then actually, I'll tell you why simple is better too, just from a neurological standpoint, because I get really curious about how the brain works.
Oh, yeah.
Especially if we are talking to our partner and there's something emotionally fueled or charged or real nervous or angry, our highest levels of reasoning and functioning are not working as high as they should be, or they shut down entirely. And so that's why I always think if you got to do something that's got a lot of emotional charge, keep it simple, and it works just as well as anything that's complicated.
Works better.
I think so. I think
Yeah,
so.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Anything else you want to share with us?
I have a book out and it's called The Highly Sensitive Person's Toolkit, and you can find it on Amazon. I believe there's going to be a digital copy as well that's going to be easy to download. And so it's a great guide with information about being a highly sensitive person. If you're not sure, sort of how to figure that out. Also discussing things around social situations that can be a challenge for the highly sensitive person, relationships, family relationships, romantic relationships, work, and being a highly sensitive person, which can be also a challenge sometimes. And then also we cover health and wellness and a little bit of spirituality for the highly sensitive person. And then I also give you some of my really favorite resources that I personally use myself and I give to my clients as well that can be great tools in your journey of discovering yourself and really honoring your trait and honoring yourself as a highly sensitive person.
You really cover everything, a complete guide. Wow. Yeah.
Yes, I hope so. I mean, as I was looking back, I'm like, oh, wait, I could have included this or that, but maybe that'll be the next book because there's so much.
Great. Awesome. Thank you so much. It was really interesting.
Oh, you're so welcome. No, thank you for the opportunity.
Did you enjoy that episode? Could you do me a personal favor and subscribe and leave a review? It would mean a lot to me. Thank you so much and have an awesome day.